ACEP, which also occurred on the 20th, and then the early hours of the 21st of November 2018, respectively. These issues were later addressed. After the issues have been addressed, we had fuel challenges for generations in the east. Nigeria gas, as you know, popularly called the N gas, has stopped flowing due to pressure drop in the line to Itoki, one of the communities in Nigeria, on the 22nd of November 2018. The vessel that's supposed to deliver fuel or the heavy fuel to car power ship in Tema was also, unfortunately, within the same time, inadvertently delayed. Nigeria gas, as you are all aware, had been very reliable over the past 1 year, rising up to almost 80 million cubic standard feet of gas a day. The combinations of the delay of supply of heavy fuel for car power, as enumerated earlier, and the unavailability of gas from Nigeria meant that our generators, combinations of almost about 800 megawatts of available generation, was compromised. This include almost about 450 megawatts of car power and also 400 megawatts of Asogli. Car power, as we are aware, which I think most of you are aware, relies solely on heavy fuel oil. On Friday, November 23, 2018, the heavy fuel oil problems was resolved, but it took 2 days for the vessel to deliver fuel from Republic of Togo to car power ship located in Tema. Discharge into the power ships, which occurred within the past 2 days, is currently ramping up, and we expect a ramp up to lead to a power supply of about 430 megawatts.
So Peter Amewu spoke first about the lack of gas from the Western Enclave affecting parts of our supply. He also spoke about issues from the eastern side of things, where he explained that we are having challenges with the pressure of gas from the West Africa Power Company. Let's hear him.
Our major challenges, ladies and gentlemen, has been the incomplete reverse flow project to allow gas to flow from the east, from the west to the east. As you are aware, we have a lot of gas that's stranded up in the Takoradi area, and there will be a need for this gas to be conveyed through the transportation system to Tema to feed on some of the generators. We have to fast track it through a bypass, which has been
Okay, so that was a short excerpt of Mr. Amewu's explanation. There's more, because he also spoke about whether Dumsor was back or not, and that was quite interesting, because he says that in the past it was but now it's Dumsor, so it means at least there's a mitigation. I don't know if we have that video. Let's see if we can play you that. His explanation of whether we had Dumsor or not.
When you put off the lights, you say Dumsor, isn't it? In the past 3 years, it was Dumkra. We are not in an era of Dumkra. Okay? The lights may go off as we are witnessing, but I can assure you that that long period that we envisage, that our opponent thinks that they want to capitalize on, that period will never come, because we are managing the system. We have people here to manage the system, and we can give assurance to Ghanaians that the system is under.
So that was the Honorable Minister for Energy, John Peter Amewu. His journalists call him John Pierre Amewu. John Pierre. Very interesting guy. He dresses with this Igbo-looking attire. But he's your former boss, isn't he?
Yeah.
And his deputy is your former boss as well.
Yeah.
So he redefined Dumsor. He says there's and Dumsor. Has ACEP been independently monitoring the power supply situation? If you have, what have you seen so far?
Yes, I think for the power sector, we have been monitoring it since 2012 extensively.
Okay.
And I mean, some of the first recommendations we made, I can recall, our statements so vividly around 2012. And they keep repeating themselves. And it makes you feel like a prophet. But, I mean, it's just about doing the right thing, which we fail consistently to do. And it is all about allowing the sector to run like a business, which we have failed to do. So then you have politicians, ministers who are supposed to do policy. They are now doing the business. They are now interfering with the commercial side of things. And that is why we have this recurrent problem. And until we fix that situation and allow the institutions of state responsible for monitoring and delivering on the commercial side, and allow politicians to focus on policy, we will have this thing playing back. And once it happens, then it becomes a political tussle. Who did worse and who didn't manage it well, and it recycles itself.
Okay.
So I've been saying lately that the power sector, even as it is today, is living on steroids, really.
Wow.
Because the fundamentals haven't really shifted much. You have a situation where we had a crisis, and moving ourselves out of the crisis, we were just signing PPAs, contracts, without careful projection of what the real demand is. And if we had excess beyond what we actually need, that becomes debt or cost on us. So we kept signing, and now we have the PPAs maturing. Even as we speak today, if we had fuel, which has become an issue for the past 1 month or so, we will have more capacity than we actually need as a country. And in the power sector, because government has been interfering, everybody feels comfortable going to government to say, for me to come and generate power, you have to give me an agreement that says that if you take the power or not, you have to pay me.
Okay.
So government has committed itself to these PPAs, and therefore you have to pay the generators. So some of them may even be comfortable sitting idle and not generating and taking
You
their
still have
money.
to pay.
You
So
still
some
have
of the
to pay.
agreements you signed are very poor.
Very poor.
We'll look at some of them. But what I want to do tonight, apart from the interview, I want viewers to tell me, because we interviewed Orekuedo, the Deputy Minister, after the press conference, and he said the challenge of the past week had been solved. So according to him, we did not have a generation problem, and if there were any problems with your power, it was due to localized distribution. Those are his words. Localized distribution. So his point was, you may not have power, but it's not because we can't generate. If you don't have power, it's because of localized distribution issues that are normal that ECG would deal with. So Ben, you say the sector has been on steroids, and you describe the steroids as poor agreements. How far back do these agreements date? You're talking of power contracts we've signed with companies. Is this the past 3-4 years, or it goes back further?
No, I think even before that, when it comes to Dumsor, I think for you as a consumer and me, we are not interested in what cost it.
Okay.
We're interested in having power. Simple as that. So if there is a problem, somebody's role is to fix that problem.
So you at ACEP don't distinguish between Dumsor as in scheduled load shedding.
You can't go to school on that. The consumer has no role.
And localized faults. So maybe there's a transformer problem at Abilinkwe, Jowlu. Therefore, those in Legon can get power. You don't distinguish that from having a scheduled 6 to 6 light out.
Once your light is off, you are not an electrical engineer. You're not supposed to be understanding those as a consumer. You want power. And you're ready to pay for the power. And that is what the system should deliver to you. And that is the bottom line. So distinguishing between what caused it, we are not addressing the issue. What will move us away from a situation where we don't have to interface with the consumer to explain what is causing the shortfall? Somebody's plant is down. He's losing tens and millions of dollars possibly because he cannot produce. He has an agreement with somebody to produce a certain quantity of product. And he's not producing. That is his worry. It's not the explanation of what actually causes it.
Okay.
And that's why I keep saying that we have to address the fundamental cause so that we don't keep coming back at these things. And I said the power sector is on steroids because the debts, we haven't stopped creating the debts. The debts are still being created. If you check the ECG's operations, even for this 2018, document I have cited showed that first year 2018, they made a loss of almost 1 billion Ghana cedis.
Are you serious?
So project that to end of year. That's 2
What
billion.
period is this?
First half, that's 6 months 2018.
ECG made a loss of 1 billion cedis.
Yes. So
wow.
You can estimate that they could make 2 billion loss in a year. What that means is that the off-taker, the one who is supposed to make the money, because they sell the power to you and I, and generate the revenue to be able to pay the generators, pay the transmitters. And if they are making losses, then they are not able to pay. And if they are unable to pay, then the generators will have to call on the one who owns the agreement, which is government. And then government has to get money to come and pay. So if we don't fix that problem, we will have to use our taxes at some point to pay the generators.
We'll try to get to the root cause of the problem. But you said two things I want Barbara's views on from Imani. So you are saying we are on steroids, the agreements are poor, and you don't distinguish between Dumsor and localized faults. No. Viewers, let us know whether what you're having is Dumsor or localized faults. but Barbara, how does Imani also fail to distinguish between Dumsor as in scheduled? Because the government is telling us that we don't have scheduled power outages. If you don't have power, it's because of a localized fault. Is that something Imani is are you interested in that distinction?
Yes, well, at Imani, we've been looking at the whole gamut so far, especially when the ESLA came in and we had several efforts at debt restructuring. I mean, the main thing we've been talking about since that time is the fact that if we're not dealing with debt accumulation, yet we say we are doing debt restructuring, there's no way we are going to strike the balance. Because the real problem is with the rate at which we are accumulating debt, as Ben has already highlighted. I believe that there are certain key causal factors that run across the entire value chain that have not been very well dealt with. And once those things exist, there is no way we are going to see any change. And we did predict, I think from 2016 downwards, that we were going to fall into this Dumsor crisis again if we do not look at the debt accumulation against the debt restructuring.
Wow.
So yes, one of the main causal factors that I would particularly like to take interest in is things that have to do with how ECG is getting indebted. It's not able to get its revenues. Public sector, the agencies in government, or ECG, because ECG, I think about 40% of the power that ECG supplies is going to these government agencies, and they are not paying back. We are not seeing efforts there as much as they are given to restructuring. There are other things such as when it comes to collection of revenues and the relationship between ECG and IPPs, you realize that ECG is collecting revenue in cedis, and it's not even able to collect all. The last I checked from Energy Commission, they're collecting about 60%. And even with this, they collect it in cedis. And you can imagine the time lag. Sorry. You can imagine the time lag in the collection of revenues. They collect these revenues in cedis, and then they have to pay the IPPs in dollars. I hear they have a direct sort of power purchase agreement with the IPPs, and then they are paying for it in dollars. If you look at the breakdown of all these causal factors, you see that there are existential problems that need to be solved before we can move down the value chain to payments to grid code, payments to VRA. Once these are not solved, we're definitely going to come up with Dumsor.
So you're saying the root of the problem is the ECG's debt accumulation, exacerbated by the relationship they have with parastatals who they supply power to who cannot pay.
Yes, that's at one
And
level.
the nature of the fact that they get forex losses, right?
Yes.
Because they sell power in cedis, but they buy the power in dollars.
Yes.
So those are, but you're saying that if you don't stop debt accumulation, debt tracking will not work.
Yes. Essentially, you can't stop abruptly debt accumulation. But we are saying that if you are pegging it against debt restructuring, the rate of growth in debt accumulation should definitely be less than the rate of restructuring. So that when you are comparing the two, you have a balance. That's going to ensure that Dumsor goes away.
So are you saying that the current problem is financial?
I believe so. It's my considered view that it's a financial problem.
Because the minister was at pains to tell us it was a technical issue. In fact, if you permit me, I'll read portions of the statement they read. And I don't know if you can put this on the screen. It says there has been a coincidence of events in power supply in the past few days attributable to the following. 1, fuel supply. And then 2, major challenge on the reverse flow through the bypass. Those are the two topics. And then way forward on a reverse flow through the bypass. Now, on fuel supply, it lists a long list of things. Apart from the tripping of Jubilee, which occurred on 18th and 20th November, and OCTP, which occurred on 20th and early hours of November 21st, respectively, which were addressed, we had fuel supply challenges for generation in the east. Nigeria gas stopped flowing. They didn't say due to that. They said due to low pressure in the line to Itoki. Do you know that place? 22nd November. 2. The vessel delivering fuel, HFO, which is heavy fuel oil, to the car power ship was inadvertently delayed. They didn't talk about money. 3. Nigeria gas has been reliable over the past 1 year, rising to 80 mmscf. A combination of delayed supply of HFO for car power and unavailability of gas from Nigeria meant that about 800 megawatts of available generation was compromised. This included 450 of car power and 400 of Asogli. And then on Friday, the HFO problem was resolved, but took 2 days for the vessel to deliver to car power, discharged into the power ship, and eventually ramped up to 430. And then it says hydro generation, all plants are mobilized except Bui. We know the challenge of Bui already. There was no shortage yesterday as available generation was 2,611 megawatts against a peak demand of 2,300. Today, November 26th, Nigeria gas will start flowing at 30 mmscf, which will ramp up in the next few days. So the system is stabilized now. So they're saying that it was technical, not financial. You're saying you think it's financial. Ben, you also think it's financial?
I think that the bottom line really is financial. If you had money, I mean, we have some of the plants in the West. They are dual fuel plants. So if you had money, you could have crude oil stocks that allows you to switch from gas to LCO, that's like crude oil. So it tells you that there is some gap somewhere financially. If you had money, I'm sure a supplier of HFO will not delay because there's money to be made. You know, so we can be nice about how it happened, but if we dig deeper, we would find the financial problems surfacing somewhere. I mean, look at the IPPs. We are owing them several millions of dollars. Car Power is owed over $200 million. That's not sustainable. AXA is also owed several millions of dollars. That is debt that doesn't encourage anybody to even supply fuel to them. So you can't trace it to the financial challenges. I've heard that in any power sector there are debts, that has to be cleared at some point, which is true. But if you have debts that could be more than the cash flow for a whole year, that is not the kind of debt that you can entertain in any efficient.
Where do you think this debt is coming from? So Maud spoke about ECG accumulating debt. Today we looked at the financials of all the energy companies. They all have debts. Gridco has debts. VRA has debts. Ghana Gas is accumulating debt. ECG has debt. Who is starting this chain reaction in your view?
I think it's ECG.
ECG.
Because they have a lot of wastage in the system. So the inefficiency ensures that up to about 25% of the power they buy, they cannot account for it. So if you buy 100 million worth of power, what that means is that $25 million you cannot account for it. When you talk percentages, it looks marginal. But when you look at the numbers, it's huge. So if you're operating on power purchase of, say, $2 billion a year, then you cannot account for 25%.
Wow.
That is huge. So we have to fix that problem. And also beyond that, how do they collect their bills, the commercial losses? People. So
is this just a question of
power?
Do you think is this a question of the fact that we are not paying the right tariffs, or the way ECG is set up is not set up well enough to collect revenues? I mean, where is the silver bullet for this?
And that is what we have to crack. How do we examine that institution? We know that there are processes afoot to bring in the private sector through the concession arrangement. But even before that, we needed to call the shots and pull the brakes to say some of the wastage cannot continue. and put a microscope on that institution to say, these are the short-term breaks we can pull on some of the wastage to ensure that we cannot escalate. Even if we saved 5%, that is still significant, for us to have done that. But so we have just been waiting for the private sector, and we are not dealing with the institution itself. And even the critical point here is that now you are giving it to a concessionaire, a private entity. And the private entity says, what I'm going to do is to take all that I need and can distribute. But here is the case. You have signed up to so many PPAs. Power purchase agreement. So if the distributor, you have 3,000, for example, and the distributor needs only 2,200 megawatts to distribute, government has to take care of the rest. So how do you raise that kind of money to be able to do it? And so the proposal for us has been to restructure this whole tariff system and ensure that you can quickly bring in a huge demand, businesses that can actually demand a lot of power, to be able to ensure that all the PPAs can be utilized. People who have contracts can generate before they get paid. So you do that by reducing the tariff for them. Because if the tariff is not competitive, because we are competing globally, for somebody to produce in Ghana, you have to be sure that your production is not expensive than imported product. Okay,
we'll take a break. We're talking to people who are independent analysts of the power sector, the Africa Center for Energy Policies, Barbara Andoh, she's the energy lead, and Boakye is from the Africa Center for Energy Policy. Barbara is from Imani, and we're discussing the power crisis. We have more from the press conference as well. When we come back, we'll also read some of your comments. Do you have Dumsor or not? We'll try and crack this. Barbara is talking about the debt accumulation. Ben is talking about a whole range of things affecting the structure of the industry. Don't go away.
Every day comes with its challenges. But there's someone you can trust and rely on to bring you hope for the future and joy for today. At the end of each day, you are stronger because you know that tomorrow will be better and brighter. That's the Ghanaian way. MoneyGram, bringing you closer.
Spice up your mornings with culturally enriched conversations, social interviews, and policy-oriented discussions that will keep you updated on the progress of the nation.
Those security guys who were supposed to protect them, I'm sure by now somebody must have all of them arrested. They must all be arrested because it's an unprovoked attack.
Join the Breakfast Daily team Monday through Fridays from 7:30 a.m. to 10. Let your voice be heard with the hashtag Breakfast Daily. Join us for breakfast, daily, only on City TV.
Welcome back to The Point of View. We're receiving some very interesting comments from viewers about whether Dumsor is back or not. But I want to take you to the senior minister, because when the MPP came to power, they said that Dumsor was banished. We are not sure whether it is the word Dumsor or the concept. Now, City Business is caught up with Senior Minister Safo at a program recently about whether Dumsor was coming back. These are his responses. All right, so we'll bring you that video shortly. Let me try and read a few of your comments that you sent in, and then we'll take you to Osafo Mafo. Desmond from Tumu says, Desmond Tumi from Jomoro says, is the power outage a result of debt issue or misapplication of funds? Please let your guests tell us. I'll ask them. Better, my name is Bright. I live in Baltimore and Snake Flats. Our light went off from Saturday evening and came back today, Monday at 3 p.m. National Cathedral is still a priority, you add. William from Spintex says, Benade, Dumsor is back. Colin from Taifa says, hello Bernard, good evening. Please, are there no power reserves to Avle Dumsor or Dumkra? We'll find out. Bernard, it's quite unfortunate how we don't seem to have any backup plan whenever the power crisis hits us. I believe our leaders have failed us. Tofik from St. John. Hello Bernard, Dumsor is alive and well, and those of us at Banana Inn have had our fair share for more than 3 days last week. What happened to the regasification equipment and the importation of liquid gas from Europe to ameliorate the situation, as we were told by Energy Minister? This is Kofi sending to the point of view. Saibu from Bimbila. Bernard, Dumsor is back. The minister is just playing politics with it. Okay, so let's hear Osafo Mafo's comments on whether Dumsor will ever come back.
Power rationing certainly is not coming back. As I speak, we are producing more power than we are consuming. But we have excess of about 600, 700 megawatts excess. That means we have produced far more than we need. There would be, yes, we have excess. We have a lot of gas as well. So it means we can always add to our power production because we have gas. And you need gas to produce power. But you can once in a while get a power outage here and there, which are coming out of technical problems. And therefore, that is not Dumsor. Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, Osafo Mafo says you may have power outages that come out of technical problems. Let's hear more from the Energy Minister from today's press conference. He spoke on a wide variety of issues around the causes. So if we have that video, we'll show you more about what is really causing the problem in the past few days.
Our major challenges, ladies and gentlemen, has been the incomplete reverse flow project to allow gas to flow from the east, from the west to the east. As you are aware, we have a lot of gas that's stranded up in the Takoradi area. And there will be a need for this gas to be conveyed through the transportation system to Tema to feed on some of the generators. We had to fast track it through a bypass which has been completed but not connected to the West African gas pipeline yet. This is as a result of the authority, which we call the WAGBA, which had not fully come out to agree on the tariff. In an earlier discussions, they intend to put the tariff price at 3.2 MMBTU, while the ministry insists on $1 MMBTU. The discussion has persisted for weeks, but I'm happy to announce that the authority on Friday, November 24th, 2018, the West Africa gas pipeline, the regulator, has finally issued the final tariff notice of $1.7 per MMBTU. This will now be approved by the Committee of Ministers on the 30th of November 2018, this Friday, to pave the way for the signing of the gas transportation agreement. So
more discussion about agreements. Earlier on, you heard Osafo Mafo saying that Dumsor wasn't back. So let me come back to my guest. Barbara, does Imani think we have the right mix in terms of, so two things, east versus west, right? We have some plants in the east, it depend on the Cone area, the gas from Nigeria. West, this is the Takoradi thermal enclave, depending on our own gas. Then there's the hydro, Bong and Akosombo. Then a bit of solar. Do you have an ideal mix in mind, and how optimal is what we have based on your analysis?
An ideal mix, I think that's a very interesting question. Talking about what is ideal becomes very, you have to put it in context. Because when we started with hydro, it was ideal for a period for the size of our population at that time. But given population growth and other things that came up, we had to shift from hydro, especially because of the intermittency of the rainfall patterns and all that. Mm-hmm. Now we've come to depend on thermal. Thermal provided good options for us because we could have wider coverage and all that. But then we never solved the problem of security of fuel supply. Okay. And that has been our main challenge now. And then we are looking at renewable. Renewable has the the strength of being complementary in the short to medium term. And then we have to go through the challenges of also putting renewable onto the same distribution grid that we are looking at now. So talking about what is ideal or optimal, I believe it has more to do with exactly how we are marrying these different sources of energy rather than whether this is thermal or whether this is hydro. It's about how we are optimizing the efficiency of producing from thermal, whether it's thermal, hydro, whether it's hydro, or renewable energy, whether it's renewable energy, because it all has to go together.
So, without being overly technical, so they tell us that some of the plants can be retrofitted to accommodate both gas and then...
Yes, we have dual fuel plants.
Yeah, so, I mean, we had a shortage of gas, right? And now they had to go and get heavy fuel oil. That may be cheaper, but I don't know if it's even clean. Are you guys also concerned about the mix of power in terms of its cleanness? Because there's heavy fuel oil, there's light crude oil, so there's HFO, there's LCO, then there's diesel, and then there's gas. Is that something of concern, or for you guys, it's more about just availability?
I think that it's a matter of going for what is ideal that we need in this particular time to be able to provide the power that we need. I know many people hold the view that it has to be clean. We agree to that. Gas, for instance, provides a very unique option because it's very clean as well. But then in situations where we need power, we have shortages and we have to go for cheaper options. It's better to go for something that we can ride on over a period of time to produce the power that we need, rather than being fixated on... we have to find the right balance between the clean fuels and the right fuels for us to be able to supply our power needs within a period of time.
So Jubilee gas is free. 10 gas we have to pay. ENI Sankofa is pay or take.
Take or pay.
Take or pay. What is ACEP's view on these? Why are we getting gas free from Jubilee? Why are we having to pay for 10? And why is Sankofa more expensive than the previous two? Have you guys studied this?
Yeah, I think during the negotiation prior to the development of the field, government negotiated with the companies to support the economy, and they agreed to give the first 200 billion standard cubic feet of gas to Ghana for free. So once that is exhausted, we're going to have to pay. So it's not free forever.
Okay.
So we have a free quantity of gas from the Jubilee field as part of the unitization agreement and how it was negotiated. Remember, Cosmos and Talo had to bring their fields together to produce from the Jubilee field. So that was a concession the partners at the time made to provide that free gas to Ghana. The other fields are purely commercial. The 10 field, we have to pay. ENI, I mean, they develop a whole infrastructure because of the gas, so it cannot be free if they are going to produce gas from that field. So that is how come that happened. But the question about where the balance of our plants and where they are actually located. So we have some plants in the western part of our country and then the eastern side. And we need both wings to have some amount of capacity, because else if we're wheeling everything from the east to the west and to the north, then it becomes too much load, and then you have fluctuations along the way. So you need to have some power in the western corridor and the eastern side.
They say they want to move the car power to the west because they feel that we need the car power would use the gas. So the minister said they will move the car power from Bone to the west. I don't know whether
I think we should have known this long ago. It shouldn't even be happening now.
But should they be blamed for this? Should we not say that some of the problems this government is facing were inherited? So to be fair, they've inherited, for example, a large debt. They said they inherited a $2.4 billion debt in the energy sector, right?
Yeah.
Are they not, for example, they didn't bring car power. They didn't sign the America agreement. They've had a chance to renegotiate. But in doing this discussion, should we not be fair to them in saying that some of the problems they've inherited are legacy problems, instead of being so hard on them saying that once people don't have power, we don't expect any explanation?
No, I think it's a fair thing to say that car power didn't have, it shouldn't have been in the east because we wanted it to consume the gas, and it was part of the agreement that we would have to switch from HFO to gas at some point. So it should have technically gone there to start operating. it doesn't also stop the argument that 2 years since they came to power, they could have made efforts to push car power to that side. Even the 450 came under this regime, because remember it was 225, and then they had to bring in a bigger one and take the smaller one. So it is all the politics that I should say. You should have pushed that one also to the West to ensure that it was available for the gas. We have made E&I to produce our gas for us to consume on take-or-pay basis. And now the gas is ready. They've built the infrastructure, FPSO, bigger than the football field. And we have not been able to deliver a pipeline that would, send gas to a power plant. And that is what we have to wait for now. And if you check the budget, because of that, we are now having to suspend the production of our royalty share and our participation in interest in that field. So we are suspending the revenue that could have come to Ghana for development because we were never ready to consume.
So Barbara, you said
so these are all part of the problem.
The problem was essentially debt accumulation.
Yes.
Well, the government started something called ESLA.
Yes.
Right? Which was partly a levy and partly a bond, if I'm not mistaken. So there's an ESLA bond. They went to borrow money.
So the ESLA receivables, the bond is leveraging the ESLA receivables.
So they use the ESLA that we pay to service the loan.
Yes.
And I understand it brought in 3 billion per year. This is the information I have. I don't know if that's correct. Based on your estimation, how much do we have from ESLA? And why do ESLA have a liquidity problem if they've been collecting ESLA for 2 years?
All right, so from what I saw, I believe the amount that was collected this year was 2.3 billion. But when you look at the distributions from ESLA, there are several of them, because even though we are collecting this amount, not all of it is going directly to servicing debt. There's a part that is going to the energy service debt account. There's a part that is going to the power infrastructure management account, and these are different percentages. I know that even from this ESLA, we are still servicing TOR debt. We are still servicing certain debts that are already there. And then from the energy debt recovery levy, we are servicing the power sector debt. We are paying off the power utility debt. So not everything is going directly towards debt servicing. So out of the 2.3 billion that is collected, some of it, there are portions that are given towards debt servicing, towards TOR debt levy, towards other things.
So we don't know how much of the $2.4 billion has been paid so far.
According to the 2018 budget, they announced that 50% of the debt had been serviced. It was announced in Ghana cedis, and they said they had paid off 5 billion of the debt in the 2018 budget.
Really?
So we're looking forward to announcements in the 2019 budget as well as to how much of the debt had been reduced within the 2018
But if the debt is
fiscal year.
$2.4 billion,
Dollars.
that's about 10 billion cedis.
Yes, and they said they had reduced 50% of it. That brought it to 5 billion Ghana cedis.
Over 2 years?
Yes.
That's good. Isn't that impressive?
I think what they did was to raise the bonds to offset part of the debt, so that they could service, the bond with the ESLA, the revenues that are coming. But I mean, the fundamental question we've been trying to, answer here, even is that the debt accumulation that Barbara talked about. If, for example, ECG in one single year is going to create a loss of 2 billion. Even in 2019, the total projection for ESLA is about 1.3 billion. Okay, so how sustainable is that? We have to deal with the cost of losses.
Well, the ECG concession, because when you trace the chain, VRA owes, Gridco owes, ECG owes, Ghana Gas owes. Both of you seem to be saying ECG is where the whole thing starts from. Because when they sell the power, they're not able to recover how much they sell, 40% loss. So if you give the concession to the Filipino company and they straighten out ECG, the chain reaction ends, does it not?
That is on the assumption that they will be able to fix every part of the problem. And that's why I mentioned that for that arrangement, they are only going to take what they can distribute, okay, what they need to distribute. So they project the demand and say, this is how much we need. 2,300 megawatts for the year. So that's what you're going to buy. So if you have excess, ECG as an entity has to deal with it. And it's government of Ghana that has, guaranteed those power plants. So that is another, challenge for us to deal with as a country. Because the Filipino company is not going to deal with that part. Because they didn't sign the agreement. They are only here to
so the
distribute
concession notwithstanding the problems of...
Hopefully that should be able to address some of the
The
losses.
solvency challenges will not be addressed by
not entirely. Not entirely, because there is that component of power that has to be sold, and if there's nobody there to buy it, because mind you, the agreements that we signed, the power is so expensive, you can't even wheel it to the region because you are not competitive. Unless we agree that we will discount it and Ghanaians will pay the margin for us to be able to sell it.
How much
of
a missed opportunity was it when we went to renegotiate that merit deal? Did you feel at ACEP and Imani that we could have cancelled that deal? Because I remember in the opposition, the MP made a lot of noise about their merit deal. And then I remember the energy minister and some people, I'm sure this is Philip Addison and co, went to try and renegotiate their merit deal. Based on your analysis, should we have abrogated that deal? Was it possible to do that?
We said, I think we issued a statement and said it was impossible.
It was impossible to come out of that deal? Unless
you had evidence that showed that they arrived at those contract values based on corruption, and you need, clear evidence to show for that. Beyond that, I mean, if you read the Attorney General's report, in the room, at the negotiation table, Ghana was more capable than America. So you have the Attorney General, you have the Energy Ministry, represented. And then they achieve a contract, it goes to Cabinet, Cabinet approves it, it comes to Parliament, Parliament approves it, in spite of the resistance and, the questions we raised about the agreement. And it got passed. You cannot then turn around to go and blame the two people who represented America to say that they duped the country. So once that was ratified and you agreed, I have my plant, I'm selling it. And I said I want 510 million for it. And you agreed to buy it at that price. And he has brought the plant here. At what point do you say that the plant is too expensive? So for us, it wasn't possible for you to just say you are cancelling the contract. But you could go to the company and say, this is what we have inherited. We see challenges. The power sector cannot pay this money. And therefore, what can we do to bring the value down? And when there is good faith, we kept saying that when there was good faith, you could make savings by agreeing that if we are not able to pay you 510, you're also losing money. So let us agree to see what is reasonable. And through that gentleman agreement, there could have been some savings that could be passed on to the consumer. And that was the only avenue we thought was available to government once the contract had been delivered.
We'll take another quick break on the point of view, trying to unravel whether we have Dumsor or not. I'll push my panel to make a specific comment whether Dumsor is back or not, because the minister has said that the challenges have been overcome. We have lots more of your comments around the country on the situation. Don't go away.
For regular news checks as they unfold, 2020 news, all day, all the time. Politics, sports, entertainment, business, and more.
And that's all for 2020 news on City TV. All the news in 20 minutes.
We spice up your mornings with culturally enriched conversations, social interviews, and policy-oriented discussions that will keep you updated on the progress of the nation.
Those security guys who were supposed to protect them, I'm sure by now somebody must have all of them arrested. They must all be arrested because it's an unprovoked attack.
Join the Breakfast Daily team Monday through Fridays from 7:30 a.m. to 10. Let your voice be heard with the hashtag Breakfast Daily. Join us for breakfast daily, only on City TV.
Welcome back. This is the point of view. Tonight we're asking whether Dumsor is back or not. And my guests are from the Africa Center for Energy Policy, Ben Boakye, and from the Imani Center for Policy and Education, Barbara Andoh. Here are more of your comments on this program. Felix Bruce in Odoko Tepa. When you play politics with the power sector in opposition, Dumsor will expose you. Ghana has enough gas. What is it used for? Quickly now, someone says, good evening, Bernard. Is the new concessionaire going to take up ECG's debt? If yes, how are they going to clean this up? And if no, who will pay? It seems the whole power sector needs serious deregulation. Good evening, Bernard. I really love your show. This government is not telling us the truth. They should accept the fact than lying to us. Dumsor is back. Super incompetence. Jerry from Dansoman says so. Good evening, Bernard. The wastage on the part of ECG is so huge. Most sections of the Zongo communities like Nima and Mamobi do not even have meters, let alone pay bills. The government agencies are also bad. Christian Abusigri in Dansoman. The problem is we play politics with everything in Ghana. The government and opposition are busily playing political chess with the power situation. What is wrong with our politicians? Let me go on Facebook and read a few of your comments. Isaac Ibrahim is asking, please, could you define intermittent power outage? Because the minister said this. Charles Nyami in Asimakesi says, we thank God Akufo-Addo's energy minister has finally admitted that Dumsor is back and that we should expect more power outages. Now the realization is that when the reality on the ground is fast exposing your lies and deception, you just can't keep lying but have to accept your ineptitude and move on. Okay. Ghanaians like speaking English instead of acting. Everyone in Ghana is an expert in some field. Chew and pour and textbook things in Kwesi JC. Okay, so Barbara, what are your thoughts on the way forward, right? You've said ECG debt. Should we abrogate some power purchase agreements? Should we cancel some of these? What should we do to salvage the situation?
Well, the energy minister has already said that some of the power purchase agreements are going to be terminated.
Okay.
As of now, they have not been terminated. Mm-hmm. And I know that termination is actually going to come at a cost. Last I heard, we're going to be liable to pay about $57 million.
Ooh.
What that will save us, though, is that we probably wouldn't have to be paying excess capacity charges in entirety if we are definitely terminating those particular contracts. But for those ones, the PPAs that have already been initiated, we are not going to be able to immediately cancel them, but some of them are going to be deferred.
Ooh.
So that's it with the PPAs.
Wow. You agree with this?
No, I mean, for cancelling a contract that is already established, I mean, a plan that is already here, then you're looking at, between $500 and $900 million, according to the cost we have seen for some of the plans. So unless Ghana has that kind of money, when you went for $900 million for 3 years of IMF support, you cannot do that. So I think for us, what we need to do is really look at the demand side. How can we boost demand to ensure that whoever is here to generate power will actually do that business of generating electricity, so that the cost is not shifted to you and I. So immediately we have to look at how we boost industrial growth. And I saw an option in the budget, which is bringing on one port line from VACO to be able to consume more power. We may need to restart all the plants, the 5 port lines, for them to be able to absorb a lot of the excess capacity. But to do that, VACO cannot be viable with the tariff that we have here today. So you have to bring the tariff down for them to be able to consume as much power as possible. And the same must go for other high-consuming industries. Give them cheaper power for them to be able to operate at a margin.
So you think industry should rather have cheaper power?
Absolutely.
And those who consume should pay more?
We don't have a choice in this situation. Else, we'll continue to make losses. In fact, some of those companies shouldn't even be going through ECG. They should buy directly from the generators and pay at a cheaper rate, so that we can get the generators generating power and nobody's.
So you guys seem to say we are paying the wrong tariff, and therefore the companies are running at a loss. But they go and borrow on our account as government, right? In fact, government is creating this ESLA bond on the basis of taxes we are paying, using that to service a debt they are taking in our name. And yet they turn around and blame us for not paying the right tariff, for their running down. I mean, all your 4 major power parastatals have debt, and they are making losses. How is that the fault of the Ghanaian?
No, I think I mean, it cannot be the fault of the Ghanaian because the decisions were not made by the ordinary people. All of us cannot make the decision. That's why we elect and give the power to politicians to handle. And if you check the financials of VRA, in 2011, VRA made profit. So why did VRA 2 years after became almost bankrupt? You know, so it tells you that if we allow the systems to run, we allow people to run and hold them accountable, they can deliver as institutions. So it's an interference, and I keep saying that. Check all the power plants. It's the politicians who procure them. Yes, they sign all the PPAs, you know, on the back of Dumsor.
So if you are running Gridco or VRA, you are a lame duck, or you're essentially not in charge. The politicians will tell you what to do.
Absolutely. I mean, Energy Commission is supposed to plan generation addition. They are supposed to run the sector and check how much power do we need, and they can call for producers to come in. It had never happened. It's the politicians who do the procurement. They bring in the generators, they negotiate directly. There has never been any competitive bidding for a power plant in Ghana. You know, and you can achieve optimal power supply with that kind of negotiation. And I have seen contracts that were better, proposals that were better than most of the ones that we signed for. And you have to say, why did we choose the West from the cheaper ones that were available? You know, so the fundamental problem is that we have to see it as a business and allow proper business principles to dictate who comes in to generate.
Let me read a few comments and then we wrap up. Frederick Akwesi Kuma on Facebook watching our stream says, the opposition in NDC should give us a break. The intermittent supply of electricity due to technical hitches shouldn't be a guarantee for staging unwarranted attacks on government. The NDC plunged our nation into Dumsor for 3 years. The challenge is being fixed. Ghanaians are happy with the government of President Akufo-Addo. Let me go to Twitter. Pakwisi Kwe says, Dumsor is back. Bernard, ECG is to be blamed. They have failed to arrest people on illegal connections. The disconnecting team takes money to cover them. A friend witnessed an ECG man taking 500 cedis from a customer who was caught with illegal connection. Kwabna Oti says, we really need a point. Bernard, I think this power outage, there's more to it than Ghanaians think. If Dumsor indeed is not back, then what is really the problem? If your mother is dead and you say she is asleep, the senior energy minister should be rude to Ghanaians than hide behind this scene playing political football, defending like Mourinho. Barbara, what's your final comment? What's the most important thing government should do?
Well, I would say that given that we are seeing the undertones of the financial problem or the liquidity problem, they would need to match up their debt restructuring efforts against the debt accumulation efforts. Debt accumulation, so that they make sure that net debt accumulation over time is not positive. Once they are able to break that vicious circle of debt accumulation along the value chain for electricity supply, we'll be able to have a right balance that will enable us to have adequate and stable power supply over time.
Ben, your former bosses today announced to us that the problem has been solved. And they said that whatever we experience is just going to be localized. Are you optimistic that getting to Christmas there will be no load shedding?
I mean, if we have fuel, I don't anticipate that there will be load shedding because we have enough plants to generate electricity. What I'm worried about is having plants sitting idle and we having to pay for those plants. And I think that is where the attention should go. We have to make sure that there is demand for electricity. And that strategy to get that in place is now. If we wait, we are going to have to accumulate more debt. And ultimately, when the 4 year is over, 8 years is over, you and I will be called upon to come and pay for that debt. And that's what we should be concerned about. How do we ensure that the debt accumulation doesn't continue the way it is?
Enokousu Ansa says, Bernard, I want to know what has happened to the district boundary metering, a policy the former minister Ejako proposed to help ECG avoid the loss of power in the country. Well, I'm sure you guys will say that if we are serious about solving ECG's problems, every government agency should be on a prepaid meter.
Definitely.
Well, we are on a prepaid meter here at City, and I hope you are at Imani and ACEP too.
Yes, we are.
You are?
Yes.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for your insights. I've been speaking to Barbara Andoh. She's the energy lead for Imani. Barbara, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
And Benjamin Boakye is the Executive Director of the Africa Center for Energy Policy. Ben, great to have you on the program. Thank you for being here. And that's all we have time for today's edition. If you manage to watch this for 1 hour, at least Dumsor is not as serious as it was a few years ago. If you are watching this on a generator, well, we commiserate with you. My name is Bernard Avle. Keep watching City TV and good night.
The Point of View is sponsored by MoneyGram, bringing you closer.
Welcome to another week, and we're so excited to bring you this show. Melissa, tell them we have been waiting for you. We have been waiting for you.
Welcome, guys. Welcome to another week, like Ato said. And yes, we are excited. We are excited, and there's a lot to talk about. We've been really busy this weekend.
Yeah.
Wow, my goodness. A lot of things have happened over this weekend. Awareness, Afrima Awards.
Afrima.
If you guys were there, let us know. Hashtag 30 minutes. You're hanging out with myself, Melissa Awad.
And myself, Ato Kwamina.
Fantastic. Yeah, lots to talk about, guys.